Okay, so this writer's name is Yang Jingrun, right? So what do you know about him?
So his parents, they emigrated from Taiwan and Hong Kong. Yeah, and they met in San Francisco while they were in graduate school.
Right. And so he's a very kind of like very famous graphic novelist, right? He's also a cartoonist, right? So now he's actually a professor at Hamline University, teaching what? Creative writing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So next slide, please. Yeah. So this is a little bit information about him. He actually won a lot of the awards. So actually, this graphic novel won the literature award as well. Okay. So it's really unusual for graphic novel would won a literature award because of what?
Oh, because most people debate that graphic novels aren't really literature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have this kind of so-called genre hierarchies, right? Okay, next slide. So initial question is that how is graphic novel different from so-called traditional novels in comics? What do you think are the visual elements that graphic novel helps to convey? And then what are the other literary elements for graphic novels and comics that we can compare and contrast to so-called traditional novels? Do you think there are any kind of styles or visual aids that can help you to understand the plot or the theme better in graphic novels? What do you think are the values for graphic novels? Anyone? Jennifer?
I mean, it's easier to digest. It's easier to flip through and see all the pictures and I don't know, in that way.
It's easier to understand. Instead of having to picture it, you kind of have that right in front of you to know what.
Visualize.
Right.
Help you to visualize. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
I think it's easier to tell what kind of emotions people are experiencing because you can see their facial expressions a lot more clearly. And also use of space usually is really good for contrasting themes, topics, or anything going on at the time.
Okay, very good. Next slide, please. Yeah. So these are the essential questions we might want to ask because this is actually the first graphic novel we've read so far, right? So how is the genre of graphic novels different from contemporary novels? That's the first questions, right? Why would an author choose this genre over the contemporary novels? Why do you think he chose graphic novels instead of traditional novels?
For Yang, I think it was also just an issue of his own history because he really wanted to be a cartoonist when he was a kid, but his parents didn't really want him to. So it's not really an autobiography or a story that's his own, but it's a story he wanted to tell through cartoons.
Okay, very good. Next slide. Yeah. So actually graphic novels, they have the same format as comic books, okay? And so the text plus the illustrations, as Matisse mentioned, you have the visual aids, right? That present informations, okay? So usually they contain only one story. Okay, so it can't be as complex as traditional novels, right? You can do more experimental stuff for the traditional novels, okay? All right, next page. Yeah, so this is the format. So we have the captions, we have the so-called panels, we have the gutter, right? We have thought balloons, dialogue balloons, right? Which you don't have it in novels, right?
Yeah.
And you have sound effects, right? Dialogue balloons, okay? So it helps you to visualize. Okay, next page. Yeah, so there are some types for graphic novels. So usually they have superhero stories, like for instance, the 911 report. That's a graphic novels. So some cover humor, Okay, like Ninja Turtle, Ninja stories. Some are non-fictions, okay, and then some are fantasy stories. A lot of them are adaptations actually, right? So you have what type of adaptations? Romeo and Juliet. What is this? A person turning into a bug.
Oh, is that Metamorphosis?
Yeah, Metamorphosis, right? So you have a graphic novel on that.
Metamorphosis has a graphic novel?
Yes, we do. Okay, and so we also have realistic fiction, the plain Jane, okay, and personal stories, okay.
Yeah.
Kafka,
Oh, yeah.
Metamorphosis.
Kafka.
Yeah,
Yes,
Kafka.
exactly.
Franz Kafka. There we
Next
go.
page,
It's the
okay.
simplest.
So originally it didn't start with graphic novels, right? It started with comic strip. And then originally it was on Sunday paper, it's free, just to attract the reader's attentions, okay? And it was appeared in New York World, 1895. Okay, next page. Yeah. So 1897, they started to use word balloons, multiple panels to tell stories, so it gets more complicated, right? And 1933, they did reprints, but originally it was free, and then later on it became like 10 cents for each. They started to sell it. Okay, next page. Okay, so history of graphic novels. Couple of years that you might need to keep in mind. So superhero things is actually a big thing during World War II, but then later on it includes more things like crimes, science fictions, and horror comics. And then in the 50s in the United States, because I think the whole country gets a little bit conservative, and then in 1954 there's a graphic novel called Seductions of the Innocent that was published. So the senator, they decided to censor it. So 1950s comics exempt by the US senators, and then those were banned and burned. So we couldn't imagine that nowadays, right? So how can they burn and ban the graphic novels, right? But they did, okay. So a new beginning, that's around 1961, 1960s. So it gets better later on, you know, the ban was released. And then so during 1992, we started to have graphic novels that won the Pulitzer Prize. Okay, and then actually this book we read, in 2006, it won the best young people's literature award. Yeah, okay, let's go to next page. So we all know the summaries. I need someone to do a quick summary for us. Elena, speak a little bit louder, yeah.
Of the story?
Yeah.
So it's about a boy named Jin Wong. He goes to a majority white school, and he is kind of like he and his family moved to Chinatown, and he grew up with a lot of Chinese friends. But then when he went to school, like he's confronted with like a lot of microaggressions and stereotypes from his teachers and the classmates. He was bullied, and it wasn't until he met another student who was from Taiwan, and he basically made a friend from there. Continue with
Yes.
like the whole story. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you saw a change in the main character, and it goes into like the monkey story as well,
Right.
and then like the stereotype. What's his Chin Ki.
That's the cousin.
That's the cousin. That's the like it goes into like two different stories. Tells you about the monkey, and then it talks about Chin Ki, who is basically the caricature of different stereotypes. And as time goes on, then Jin Wong, it's revealed that Jin Wong basically changed himself into like a white person, which was the same guy whose cousin was Chin Ki,
Right.
who's like ashamed of Chin Ki and like all of his stereotypes that Chin Ki is like presenting and stuff. So then sooner or later, I mean, I didn't add the fact that he fell in love. Jin Wong fell in love with like a classmate. So he like changed his hair and stuff, and then he changed into like a white person and named himself Danny.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, it was revealed that the friend that he made from Taiwan, he's the son of the Monkey King, and the Monkey King came down to the Monkey King was Chin Key the whole time. And he was like, okay, well, I revealed my own self. Now it's time for you to reveal like your true self. And then Jin Wong and the boy from Taiwan, like, he like changed a lot too to become more Americanized. Like he's smoking cigarettes, wearing chains, driving a expensive car, and he apologized to his new friend. And so it.
Okay, so this book was published, but then it includes 3 plot lines, right? So Lena just told us the first one is the story, the plot line of the Monkey King, the journey to the west, right? And then the second one is the story of Jin Wang, Chinese American.
Yeah.
And then the third plot line is the story of Chin Key, right? So that's the that's the substitute or so-called substitute of the Monkey King's son, right? Okay, let's go to the next page. Yeah. So what does the Monkey King story tell us in this story?
To accept who you are, basically.
Yes. Can you sum up really quick for what's going on? Last time we talked about he was banned from the banquet, right?
Yeah.
And then he feels so
So
mad.
yeah, the Monkey King, he hears there's a big banquet going on in heaven, so he masters the 4 disciplines of Kung Fu and goes up there to take place, waits in line for, it's, a very, very long amount of time. And then when he finally gets, to the front of the line, they tell him he can't come in. He's not even wearing shoes. No monkeys allowed in heaven. And so he gets mad, beats everybody up, goes home, and that scene ends with him noticing the smell of monkey fur for the first time.
So the first time for his whole life, he became so self-aware.
Yeah.
Self-aware of his deficiencies.
Not
His
Being
perceived-
barbarians, so-called barbarians,
perceived
right?
deficiencies, yeah.
He started to perceive himself from the other people's perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And then he started to feel, I'm inadequate.
Yeah.
I'm more inferior. And then what's the result of that? He started to dislike himself.
And he tries to become more.
He wanted to become
Yeah.
someone else, right? Okay, next slide. Okay. But then originally in the Journey to the West, we know the Monkey King is actually the most powerful monkey, right? Among the group. He can perform what? He can transform himself into 72 different types, right? So he has many strategies, powers. Can you give me some of the examples?
He transforms into a cannon. I mean, he can grow into a giant.
Yeah, he can grow into a big giant. He can,
Shrink.
shrink.
He can make clones of himself.
Yes.
Fly
Okay. What
in
else?
Clouds.
Yeah, there's a
He has a staff.
Yeah, the magic cudgel.
Right. Okay. So what happened in the middle of the book? He said, now I went back home. I practiced all those disciplines. I learned. I self-learned. Right. I become different.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Everyone laughed at him.
Yeah, everyone loved him. But notice one thing, he tried to persuade all the deities one by one, right? So that's something impressed me because of what?
Oh, because.
Do you need to persuade other people
No.
about who you are? Okay, so for instance, Mia, you're a woman, right? Do you need to go over to the whole class or the whole world, try to persuade each person, I am a female, I'm a woman?
No.
No, right? So what does his attempt of trying to persuade everyone is different say about him?
He's very insecure.
Yes, what else? He's very insecure about what?
Of that he's a monkey. Because
As a deity.
they don't see him as an equal or like as a god.
Exactly, right? So the action itself to persuade other people already told us that he's not confident about himself, about who he really is.
I mean, he literally renames himself the Great Sage, Equal of Heaven.
Right?
Like,
So
that's,
the name is also about identity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So he's not confident, he doesn't even trust himself who he became. That's why he needs to persuade.
Yeah.
And then he mentioned one line, he said something like, it's very hard to persuade each deity, right? And then what happened? People bought what he said? He said, no, I can't do anything right now. Who did he mean?
Oh, he meant, well, in the normal story he meets Buddha, but
Yeah, he met Buddha.
because of Christian influence, it's more like a Christian deity.
Yeah, we have a deity who
Yeah.
lives here. Who is the deity? Well, he actually met two very important
Yeah.
figures.
Are you talking about the his creator, like
Yeah.
the old monk?
Say
Yeah.
Say-
Oh,
Say-
Seiyu-Tzu, yeah.
Okay.
So he was talking.
Teiuzi, right?
Yeah.
So what happened?
So he tries to run away from him.
He said, I can do anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing I cannot do. And then the deity say what?
I created you.
I created you. I'm the creator of the world, right? So what else?
Oh, he tries to escape him, but he can't.
The debate was actually about identity.
Yeah.
Because the deity kept telling him, I created you. I know your true identity. You are just a monkey,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? You are not the God you name yourself. What was his reaction?
Well, he ran away and
He said, no, I want to prove it.
yeah,
I can run as far as
outside of the universe.
outside of the
his
universe.
own comic universe.
Yeah, so he flew away. He flew outside of the universe, and then what did he saw at the end of the world? The
Over
universe.
5 gold pillars.
Okay.
And he peed on it.
And he peed on
And
it.
wrote his
And
name.
Yeah.
what happened?
It's
And it's
it's
just
the creator's
the-
hand.
Yeah, it was the creator's head, right? So that proved he cannot escape from the creator. Okay, what does this story tell us? What are the themes involved in these stories? When he tried to improve himself, he became what? We talk about insecure, right?
Yeah.
Hanok,
Well, I mean, I was about to say like the story between the Monkey King and the kid. What's his name? I can't remember. Jinwang.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like the same story.
yes,
It's like
exactly.
two mirrors
They're
on
parallel stories.
They're like
right?
parallels,
Yes,
and
exactly.
they sort of like portray like how you want to escape like the fact that you're a minority, or
Yes.
you're being seen as something different and all that kind of stuff. And like in the end, like you can't really escape it per se, but you sort of like have to accept the fact that like that part of who you are is
Right.
gonna remain who you are, and
Yes.
it's better for you to embrace it, for you to accept it, for you to integrate that into your life, rather than for you to like reject that and try to
Reject.
like be something or someone that you're not. You know?
You don't have to, right?
Yeah.
You have to feel comfortable, right? What is the other side of
Oh, he became much more proud.
insecure? Proud,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Arrogant,
Mhm.
right? So he's not humble anymore, right? But then it's like two sides of the same coin, right? I don't feel confident enough, that's why I present myself as very proud, right? Okay, and then, so how did he get punished? Anna?
Well, I mean, can one argue that being comfortable isn't necessarily always the focus that you should be attaining? Because, like, alright, for the first part of the story, where it portrays the story of the Monkey King, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Alright, say he wasn't a monkey. Say he wasn't a monkey. And he was a human being, or, he was another form of deity, the dragon god, or whatever you want to call him, because the dragon was let in and all that kind of stuff. But he wasn't wearing shoes.
Yeah, he
And
was.
he's going into the palace
Yes.
of a king.
We talked about that last time, right? So we talked about that, about the dressing code.
Yeah.
Okay, there are a lot of problems and issues there because on the one hand, that's another world, right? The heavenly banquet is another world. They have another system. They have another hierarchy over there. So they have a dressing code for everyone, like cocktail suit. Can we wear Jim to an embassy cocktail suit?
If you're the ambassador.
Yeah, if you are the ambassador. So what are the things missing there?
Well, I guess just an
We
awareness
only
of-
talk about the Monkey King. He didn't know the rule of the
Yeah.
banquet,
But
right?
also, they wouldn't have allowed him in anyways because he was a monkey.
Yes.
Yeah, they used.
There's a discrimination things involved there, right? But on the other hand, what does that say about the heavenly banquet and then those people, those deities there? Because we saw the banquet, their banquets actually includes all type of deities, ghosts, gods, no animals,
Dragon.
dragons, yeah.
I get that, and like I guess it would make more sense like if I drew the parallel like not in the other world realm, or like in say for instance like if the banquet was here, say for instance there's like a huge party, huge hall, and there's a dress code and everything like that. Like, I mean I guess there's a certain sense when where you want to be comfortable, yet at the same time you also want to pay attention towards your environment that you're in, you know?
Yes.
Because like I mean contextual awareness is also something that's
Right.
very important for you to like pay attention to. If me being like someone who's from a different country, you know, and then I come here and then I notice how the culture is is different around here, and then should I focus on me being comfortable or should I try to assimilate myself into that particular culture?
very
I mean,
good.
that's a very good distinction between the two, and I think that's like an argument
Throughout the
that can be
book.
made throughout the
Yes,
book.
throughout the book, right? So how can we assimilate or adjust ourselves to the other culture? Okay, so actually that's a question for both sides, right?
Yeah.
So on the one hand, when I come to another culture, I want to respect their culture. So I want to respect their dressing code, right? Their rules, their laws, right? So for the Monkey King, I mean, he should at least, what? Consult someone about the dressing code, right? That's on the monkey's part. What about the deity's part, the heavenly gods? What they lack was the cultural respect or the respect to difference, being different, right? Remember later on they talk about, you know, we want to put you in prison and execute you, but no one wants to go to capture you because we're afraid about your smell, right? So the smell thing is about what? Like just like not wearing shoes, right? So that actually happened. That the question was actually answered by Wei Chen, right? How did it get answered by Wei Chen? Wei Chen had the same questions, right? And also Jin has the same questions, right? When he was dating with Amelia.
Yeah.
Remember in the movie theater?
Oh, yeah.
The confession time, you give me 10 minutes, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to put on some deodorant. The smell thing, what's wrong with having smell? Right? And then he screwed it up later on, right? So that's two things. So that's the Monkey King story parallel the Jin story. But also, we want to notice that, remember Wei Chen and Jin had a good friend, Steve?
Yeah.
Right? So when he said, you know, people don't like me, I have to transfer from school to school every year because my cousin humiliated me in front of people. What did Steve told him? Do you remember?
It wouldn't happen this time.
It wouldn't happen this time. Okay, why wouldn't it happen this time?
Oh, because he was gonna beat him up if anyone made fun of him.
Yeah, okay, not only because that. Prior to that line, what did he say?
Where is that?
I don't remember that.
That should be on the quiz. Jennifer, Mia, Alexa, Martina, Troy.
Says people here aren't like that.
Yes, exactly. Okay, he said people here aren't like that. What did that tell us? They are places more conservative, right? They are less tolerant to different peoples or different things. But there are also places that are more liberal, right? You just need to find the places that you and the group of people both feel comfortable with, right? Does that make sense? Okay, can we go to next page? Yeah, so we have the Monkey King story. Remember, yeah, previous page, please. Yeah. So also, Wei Chen and Jin, they started to be very good friends, right? When Jin started to play this transformer, right? So the transformer actually pull out the theme as the Monkey King about transforming yourself, right? So the whole story is about who am I? And then if I want to transform, it's about identity, it's about adaptation, it's about assimilations, right? Next page, please. Yes. So we talk about why he was kicked out the party and then how he realized about himself, right? So he became very self-aware, right? Okay, next. Okay, we talked about this last time too. So the mom, the traditional Chinese story was the mom moved 3 times because his son always imitate people.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does this story fit in about transforming yourself.
Oh, this story fits in because it's so the story tells about how the environment or wherever you're surrounded influences how you develop.
Yes.
And so they wanted to move, I guess, to a good school district or someplace that was really American and westernized.
Yes.
And so they wanted him to grow up to be that way too.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So this is also about location, right? So you want to find a location that's more liberal, that's more accepting people, that's more open, right? And also individuals, they in the specific environment, they learn from the people around them, right? Okay, next slide. Yeah, and then so this is very important. I think the whole book center on this theme of transformation, and then we talk about this haunting line the old lady said to him. Right, next page. She said what? Can someone read this out loud for us?
It's easy to become anything you wish, so long as you're willing to forfeit your soul.
Right. So it's like the story of Dr. Faust,
Yeah.
right? How can we analyze this line?
Oh, well, here I think it's pretty obvious that the soul that she's referring to is the culture.
Yes.
So when he wants to become westernized, he's very consciously rejecting all the Chinese or Asian qualities that he and his family have.
Yes.
And he even rejects his friends' Asian qualities.
Yes.
And sometimes will enforce it by saying like, oh, that's something that like a person fresh off the boat would do, or something like that.
Yes. Okay. Hannah and Elena?
This is kind of like a question. How do we, okay, so how can immigrants maintain a balance between assimilating and accepting the culture that they're moving to, and at the same time maintaining their ethnic roots?
Okay, that's a very good question. How? Because that's an ongoing battle, right? With yourself and with people around. We talk about that. We talk about location matters, right? For instance, in the U.S., each state has different culture, right?
I actually remember reading an article, I forgot who wrote it, but the person says that like culture is inherently related to location,
Oh, yeah.
to geography. So, say for instance, Chinese culture in the United States, in Chinatown and all that kind of stuff. The fact that it's in the United States already makes it different compared to Chinese culture back in China. and all that
Yes,
kind of stuff.
exactly.
So, yeah, I guess relating back to my
It's
question.
already different. We talk about how Chinatown is different here, right? And then the longer you live in another foreign country, what?
Oh, the more
you
you are in the
part of
culture.
it. Yeah, you're in the culture, right? So there are actually two things. One very important idea is that, like we talk about throughout the semester, we talk about how much we want to change, right? How much we want to discard the past, how much we want to keep, right?
Yeah.
The problem with Jin and Wei Chen, well, actually with Jin, was what? He actually doesn't like himself. He rejects everything,
Yeah.
right? And then that is why people think he's awkward, right? Okay, so imagine if he keep the good part of himself, right? So if you, I don't know if you have any Asian friends, you think, oh, they're really cool. I really like them. I really want to. They make me want to go to Asia. They want me to visit the country, right? So if you can keep some of the merits that your culture had, and then just be comfortable and confident about who you are and where you were from, and share that. We want to use the word sharing. We don't really want to use the word change, because culture itself is fluid, right? So you're learning new culture, but you also, yourself, by yourself, like I'm standing here, when you see me, I represent Taiwan. I represent a culture, right? So I don't need to do anything. I don't need to share a song or story or whatever, but myself, my own existence of being here, it's already sharing my culture.
Yeah.
So we talk about, I'm black hair, black eyes, right? So I feel okay with that, right? So it would make me really look really awkward if I dye my hair like blonde, blue, because that's not me, right? So unless I want to, put on my Halloween makeup and have some fun, right? So the problem with Jin was that he doesn't really know how to present himself as who he really is.
Yeah.
Because only when you present yourself, only when you accept yourself, truly accept yourself, people can accept you. Right, so that is his problem, okay?
Yeah.
Let's go to the next page. So we don't need to think about, sometimes it's not really about how much you want to transform, how much you want to adapt. We just want to be natural, right?
Yeah.
You want to be comfortable, natural, well, you share who you are, you make people feel comfortable, then, that's who you are. People know, right?
Are things that are natural necessarily comfortable though?
Not necessary. But I think Jin is overdoing it, right?
Yeah.
Because he's forcing himself to becoming. If he is changing himself by nature, that's okay. If he's feeling like if I feel comfortable dye my hair purple, or pierce my ear or nose, do something crazy, get some tattoo, I feel comfortable, that's perfect. But if I force myself doing that, then you will start, because I don't feel comfortable already, then people will sense or feel it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay,
I
Elena?
mean, it's harder for him to be comfortable because he dealt with bullying like the first time he arrived. So it's like his environment is influencing
Right.
him to become something that he's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
Like it would be different if everybody embraces who he is and then he's still willing to change. Like, I
Yes.
feel like the story would be different. But if it wasn't for his teacher introducing him incorrectly the first day, or like people saying, "Oh, don't put cat or rat in my food," like
Yes.
he had a lot of outside
Right.
influences.
Forces, exactly. That's what we were talking about, the
Yeah.
environment, the location. Right, so see, even East Coast, West Coast culture are very different from Midwest.
Yeah.
Right, and middle school is very different from universities, right? We're all civilized people. Like if it's elementary school, it's probably another different story, right? So when people don't understand, they are not old enough to understand, right? That's another problem. And also, historical time period is very important.
Yeah.
What if we were born in the time of the U.S. has Exclusion Act,
Yeah.
right?
Or civilians.
So those are so-called external factors that we cannot control, right? But what we can control is our own part, right? So if you're in an environment that's less inclusive, then just move, right? You're not going to die there, no. If you're not happy, move, okay? All right, next page. Oh yeah. So this is the part that he already transformed himself into someone. That is not him, right? And later on, he had this fight with his friend, and he kissed his friend's girlfriend.
Yeah.
He kissed his friend's girlfriend first, and then he had this fight. How can we analyze that? Next page, please. Yeah, how can we analyze it? This is his girlfriend, right? So, maybe let's go back. Yeah, go back. Sorry. Okay, let's stay here. Okay, how can we analyze his kissing of his friend's girlfriend? He didn't like her, right?
No.
Why did he kiss her?
He violated.
What did she say to him? Hannah?
They also violated.
Well, Gina wanted to say something.
The one, I think why he did that was after that girl, in the other slide, I can't remember his original
Yeah.
girlfriend's
Uh-huh.
brother
Susie,
or
Japanese
someone told
American.
him that he can't be with her.
It was her-
So then he went and kissed his friend's girlfriend because I
Yes.
guess he felt like that was what he was supposed to do.
Yes, very good. So actually, Jean had a girlfriend, Amelia, right? So and then there's another Greg, so-called
Yeah.
Greg. He called to tell Jean that I don't think. My friend Amelia is at the time that she need to find a good husband candidate, but I don't think Matisse is suitable for you. Maybe James is better. So Matisse feels so frustrated.
Whoa.
He said, "Okay, Greg, I'm good.
Hypothetical
He hired
scenario,
this guy."
guys.
But then when Matisse went back home, Matisse said, "Oh my God, why should I say yes? Why should I, right?" Matisse said, "Why should I say yes to Greg?"
And then she goes and kisses Mia.
No. I'm there.
And so he has this grudge that he needs to release.
Yeah, he's really.
He's really angry. And then what happened to the Susie? What Susie told Matisse? Susie came cry to him, right? Machina is Susie. What did you tell Machina?
Why are we just mixing names from inside and out of the
What did she say to him? She encountered some sort of discrimination
Good girl.
issues too, right?
Yeah.
And then she started to cry,
Oh,
Yeah.
right?
oh yeah.
After
She's
he
talking
fixed
about
the
a party.
contract.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah, she said she felt like a chink, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Timmy called her a change.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so remember when Maxine Hong Kingston's novel *The Woman Warrior*, she bullied her classmate, right? The bully
Yeah.
thing happened again. Who is he bullying? Who is Jin fighting exactly?
Himself.
Yeah, himself. His anger is toward himself, right? What is he frustrated about?
Just lonely.
He's lonely. Okay, what else? Rejections, right?
Yeah, like he even changed his hairstyle and like he's
Yeah.
not having relationship troubles with.
Yes, he changed himself for her,
And
right?
he's jealous about
Yeah, he's
the
jealous,
long
right.
guy.
So
Greg.
what he said to Wei Chen, he said, you know, I think Susie deserves someone better, not like you. I think he deserves a white guy. Something like that, right? Not you, not Asians. Well, Susie is Japanese American, right?
Yeah.
So he actually wants to bestow what he had experienced onto his friend, right? So the whole frustration was transferred to his friend, right? Okay, and they had this fight, right? Okay, let's go to the next page. Okay, yeah, and then so she has this girlfriend, right? Amelia. We talked about next slide. So we have this so-called dating code. Before the banquet, we have this dating banquet dress code. Now we have dating code.
Yeah.
So even before they started to date each other, what happened was what?
Oh, he changed his hair because he wanted to be like the other person.
Yeah, he wanted to be the other person, and he was also jealous about Greg, right?
Yeah.
So when he saw Greg talking to Amelia, he was like, oh, do they like each other?
Yeah.
And then he wanted to become someone like Greg
Mm-hmm.
because he saw they liked each other. And then he saw Amelia like him, right? Next page. So do we still have this racial dating code here? So it's not just one side, right? So it's very tricky. It's same thing happened for Asian communities, right? So if you go to Asian, maybe not right now, right? So if a guy see an Asian woman like Jennifer, no, I'm not using her classmate's name, dating, for instance, who is good-looking, handsome young guy. Peyton. If we saw Peyton with an Asian woman, maybe in China or Taiwan, what would people react?
Oh, they would talk.
They would what? You're the Asian guy, you can
So
say
talk.
something.
I mean,
I-
white guy, I can say something.
Hannah, you can say something,
Well, I mean,
definitely.
you could say something first. I mean, go ahead.
What?
You just said you could say something, so say something.
I mean, that's just what it is. Like, they'll start talking about you because
Yeah.
that's not, like, proper and stuff like that. And, like,
hate that
even
so much.
having experience with it right now, because I am dating a white male,
Yeah.
like, a lot of, like, Asian people that I know.
Asian people, they don't like you dating someone.
They're like, oh my god,
They don't like
white
you
man.
They don't like you.
The horror.
Okay, what about your American friends?
It's normal.
They don't have a
They don't
problem
care.
with it.
It's also like the same way, like the other way around.
Yes,
Cause like
guys or women.
if like you know me, if I dated like someone who's not Chinese,
Machina.
if I dated like a
Hayden will
if I
say,
dated like a
Hayden
white
will talk to
girl or,
Machina, you know, this guy, I think Matisse is better.
But like it's like my parents and my grandparents and my entire family's worst nightmare has just come true if I dated someone who is like white.
Why? Okay, so the problem, how can we analyze it? The problem is what? Why did people reject? Why do people object to this kind of racial thing?
They don't understand it.
How they don't understand and why? What's the problem there? It's not their business.
Yeah.
They're used to the
They're
same
not
kind of
even your
people,
family
yeah.
members, right?
Yeah.
They're not your parents.
Yeah.
They're like church members.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the worst circle.
Don't hate.
Oh,
Have you ever been to a Korean church?
oh
That's what
The worst isn't when like like the people close to like when your family talks to, because you expect
Yeah.
but
And you can
once
defend yourself.
yeah you can defend yourself, but like once they talk to other people and then the friends of the friends talk to other people and then everyone talks to other, that just like it's like a constant bombardment of like, oh my god, why are you doing this, why can't you
Yes.
listen to
Okay,
your
so
parents?
my question is why do they object? It's none of their business. It's like me dating a woman.
It's just like
It's like gay and lesbian relationship. Why
Yeah,
are
well-
people so afraid about
My
differences?
my personal experience, my family is they're more open compared to like other Asian families, so like even if like they comment on it, they know that they're not gonna change my mind because they know that I'm someone who stands up for myself. So I've seen other people who are treated not like that, so like they have to keep the relationship really like a secret, so like they don't find out, which is it's just I think it's because of the culture, because like Asian cultures are very collectivist, we're not individualists, so like everything that you do, everything that others do, everything that is like around you, it's like interconnected in some way, so like
That's how Africans.
every single thing that you do, if it has implications towards not only yourself, if it has the tiniest implications toward anything else, it's going to be commented on, it's going to be scrutinized,
Right.
it's going to be judged.
Okay, but also, do we have any cases that the Western family can object? Interracial marriages?
Oh, yeah.
Relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So it's the same.
There are racist
So
people.
my question is, you can say that they are racist. So racist is not just from the Western side. It can be on the Eastern side, right? So my question was actually, what are those people objecting?
Oh, usually they object because they want like the lineage of the family to continue, like the way that they've understood it.
Okay, what else? They want the lineage.
Honestly, I don't get that lineage argument thing.
It's so stupid.
I seriously don't.
Jennifer, what do you think?
I mean,
They're bored. Church people, they're bored. They're they just love
That's
the.
part of me actually
What else?
legit thinks that they're bored.
Yeah, what else?
I don't know what church are they?
I think it just really.
Wait, you didn't let her speak.
Yeah, say something.
Wait, okay, go.
Okay, now go.
Okay,
I was just like gonna say that they just don't understand like the culture. They're like foreign and they don't want like with the whole lineage and stuff like that. But they don't want to take the time to like learn about
The
another
person.
culture. Yeah, and that
and
other
also the person, the specific individuals.
Yeah.
They view it as a collective, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't view it as case by case or individuals, right?
I also think it has to do with that a lot of people just really aren't like for the white culture. And I think because a lot of white people have done a lot of bad things, that it's just a no-no to get with that culture. And it's just a bad thing. It's like if I got with a white dude, I know for a fact my family would be upset about it because they're all the time white versus black. And so it's I don't know what it is. It's
Not my
just,
family.
you know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the only time they wouldn't be against it is when it comes to babies.
Like
I think it depends though.
James looks so shocked. James, you want to say something?
No, I'm not.
No, wait.
No. Say something.
I was just
No.
gonna say, because like for example, like you're talking about like dating, like you're dating a white male, and I was like talking to someone who's like mixed, like curly hair and like fair skin, but they weren't like completely white, and like I was raised by a grandmother, and immediately she goes like, well, like if y'all are not gonna be dating anymore, like 20 years from now, y'all still like keep in contact, cause like you plus you, like wow, that baby, like
My grandma used to say that too.
yeah, that would be like a better word, but like they really like idolize like the blend of it, but not like the relationship.
Yeah.
The outcome.
I mean, okay. Argumenting for like why they idolize that, like I mean, they usually turn out pretty good looking.
I mean, it's cool.
Not all of them.
Not all of them.
Not
Mix.
all of them. Some of them. I think you on words.
Okay, so the third storyline, Tinky, right? So
Me and me.
from him, we see basically he's an embodiment of all the Asian stereotypes. Can you give me some of the examples?
Oh, yeah.
His R's are
Really smart.
Give me some of the examples. His R's are smart. He talks in basically every class. He's like a genius, right?
My name is
Yeah, the way he talks.
Oh, pronunciation, yeah. Chinkish.
The haircut. Also,
Chinglish.
And his clothes.
His skin color, the way
Skin
he
color.
The skin color and the
Yeah, his luggage was literally taking boxes.
Yeah.
But
he had in his food.
yeah.
And he peed. He
Oh,
peed in play tray. Right?
Just to play tricks.
That part is not Asian.
Alright, I don't understand that stereotype whatsoever. I get it with the L being pronounced R because we have difficulties, like Asians sometimes have difficulties saying that. But like with the peeing and the
It's an old rhyme. Have you never heard that?
No.
That's the thing we used to, like, I legitimately remember saying that in like 3rd or 4th grade. Me Chinese, me play joke, me go pee pee in his coat. Like,
Oh my
that's
I mean, right.
Oh
like legitimately, that's just a thing. Like, that's like an elementary school thing.
I have never heard that
I think
before
I've heard
and
that
I am
recently. I forgot
glad
Asian and like had that stuff happen to them in elementary school. That was never part of that.
Yeah.
They always make
Yeah.
fun of like your eyes and like your.
Yeah, they do that.
So
They're
this
like.
is controversial. It's controversial because of this
Like Chinese,
character.
Japanese, who did it to me.
I mean, this is how
In my presentation, I looked at it. He's actually it's based on caricatures that the U.S. government
Yeah, that's what I was
did.
about to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's literally
So we talked about character representation, misrepresentation.
From like
I
the
mean,
50s.
I get the aim of the author of like why he did this, you know, but like honestly the first time I saw his character,
So he's.
the only thing I could think of is like
That's why we're here.
change on 100. I just
I saw it as like kind of a reappropriation, because it's like it takes back that warped Asian identity that the U.S. used for racist purposes, and it also just uses it to criticize the U.S. because it shows how Americans are really racist.
Also, we already watched Crazy Rich Asians, right? We talked about the reception was not good in China, right? That's another type of representation. It's not this type of representation, but that's another misrepresentation, another type, right? Because we talked about how a lot of the elements are actually so-called American, not Chinese.
I mean, okay. If we're talking about how we put these representations in the general setting, then yeah, sure, it's a misrepresentation. You know, it's like a form of formalism in some ways.
Or exaggeration.
Or exaggeration. But at the same time, I feel like these kinds of like depiction, these kinds of stereotypes, these kinds of like ideas that have been attached to like a particular image or imagery usually has origins in some ways. So I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm just saying that to a certain extent there's like sort of like a truth in some ways, because like I mean with you saying about the Crazy Rich Asians, sure, I mean it's in China it didn't get a good reception because of like how they misrepresented the image of Asians, and but at the same time in the US I know for a fact that there are lots of Asians who are like that. So I feel like you know when it comes to things like this, it's
Remember the Asians here in the US are different group of Asians.
Oh yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah.
That's it. Universal.
Okay, so we want to talk about this guy, this deity, right?
Watch it. You like her.
We talk about his character flow. Can someone repeat some of the character flows of him for us? Next page. Some of his character flow for the Monkey King. How did the three?
So they're all insecure.
They're all insecure. He's insecure. He's overly proud, right? Because of that insecure and lack of confidence, right? And then what else?
They reject their identity.
The monkey was buried in the rock for 500 years, right? How is that mountain symbolic?
I mean,
Represents the pressure.
yeah, that too.
Burden.
I mean, also like towards the end, he was like, you know, it took me 500. I would have, if I realized that I was a monkey and I can't change that, he wouldn't have been under the rocks.
Because the burden was what? Because he what?
Oh, he was trying to be more than what he really was.
He enlarged himself,
Yeah.
right? And then that fake facade has become a burden for him.
He became small.
Yeah, because if he returns his own size, then he's free,
Yeah.
right? So what does that tell us?
Oh, it was.
The burden and the freedom is just about what?
Oh, it's perspective.
Perspective and about who you want to be,
Versus who you are.
who you are trying to pretend to be, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next page. Yes, so all the themes are here. We cover some of them. So actually the writer used Chinese classic legends and stories to tell us. And what does that say about him as an Asian American?
Oh, that he's aware of his history.
Yes, lineage, right? Histories, cultures, right? Okay, so we talked about the foreigners, the difference, and the others. Respect from both sides, right?
Yeah.
Respect, because I think the monkey, he also has some fault, right? By not trying to understand the dress code in the banquet, right? And maybe put on his shoes, right? On the other side, the banquet, the people, the deities in the banquet, they should respect the monkey's culture as well, right? Because he's a monkey king, right? We cannot discriminate animals, right? Okay, so identity issues are big issues, that which also includes racial, cultural diversities, okay, and self-acceptance, self-improvements, okay. One thing is that the benevolence things come from who? Yes, the monk, right? Can someone tell us what happened between the monk and the monkey?
The monk almost got killed by the demons. And he's like, oh, the monkey's there for you to save me, you know? You're like, man, help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope.
Yes, you're right. Okay, can we go to the next page? Yes, so identity construction. This is a quote from the writer, okay? Can I have someone to read this for us? Anyone? Okay, Elena?
I think the Asian American community right now is in the midst of defining itself. For a while, I think we were all trying to be white. Then there was a period of time when we were trying to be black. And now we finally come up with something that's truly our own.
Okay, how can we analyze this quote? I think not just Asian Americans, right? African Americans has the same issues. Italian American, probably the first generation, have the same issues, right? Matisse, where is Matisse from?
Chile.
Spanish American,
Yeah.
Chile American. You probably have a little, if you're first generation. Jennifer has a little bit. Everyone has somehow a little bit. Hannah has a little bit.
I definitely have a little
How
bit.
can we analyze
A little bit
this? James say, no, I don't have that problem. I'm American.
I am.
Denmark? That's far away.
My passport ain't even American, guys, so.
Okay, so I want to conclude this semester by drawing back to the very first question I asked in our first class, okay? We did trace your family trees, remember?
Yeah.
So how does this class help you to understand your family in the past and then the current environment? Yes.
It doesn't excuse it, but like from my perspective, like some of the beliefs that like the older generation of my family has, or like some of the conflicts that we have, like it brings like reasoning and like some form of understanding to it, even though I may not like necessarily agree with it.
Okay. So the second question is because I think we're all educated people, right? But then there are so many uneducated people out there. So how can we help people to understand diversity more?
I just did a presentation on how Koreans view black people yesterday, and in my sociology class, but it's not all, of course, it's just some. And I just sort of talked about how they just negatively have like the stereotypes of black people and bad perceptions, and so I just sort of exposed some of their issues and the fact that they need to, in their education system, they really need to be properly educated, and within the media of how you know, everyone's different and that it's diverse and that not every black person is the same. And
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Unique, right? So you talk about education, you talk about media, right? So, but then you'll see, not many people receive higher educations.
Yeah.
So how can we help?
Well,
Educate them.
well, okay. First, increasing awareness is always a good thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also acknowledge the fact that I think that we should acknowledge the fact that there are people who are just stubborn, plain, and they don't want to change.
Yeah, there are.
Okay, we leave room for them.
If I guess in some ways what I'm trying to say is like if we want to like get people to tolerate others for their differences, then at the same time like we also need to understand that there are people who can't tolerate others just
Yes.
because of the fact that they're
Yes,
stubborn.
exactly. We also need to
And-
respect it, right?
Yeah, I mean we respect them in a certain way, but at the same time we don't enforce like
Yes,
our
impose.
will and
Yes,
impose
exactly.
change.